Hello, and welcome to the C3 podcast. I'm Dr. Lisa Piper, here with Wendy Cohn-Osborne. We are the founders of Code Health, an innovative therapeutic product company with safe, non-toxic alternatives to over-the-counter and prescription medication. We are here having a code-conscious conversation today. We love interviewing people that are really making a difference in the world, doing big things in the biohacking space, with research, with health and wellness, and just really putting themselves out there. And speaking of people in the biohacking space, we are here today with a very special guest, Sandy Martin, the founder and creator of the BioHacker Expo in Miami. So Sandy, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to see both of you today and share this time with you and conscious conversations. We can't have enough of that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of, I met you pre-pandemic even. Back in the day, we were taking a level 2 certification training with Dr. Krotkoff and Gaia Healers with the BioWell device. And you were sitting behind me, and a lot of people don't really stand out, but for some reason, I remembered you saying, I'm going to start creating conferences. Like you even knew then, and I don't think you had done it yet. You were just in the thought process of you had been on this beautiful healing journey, and I knew that you had been a Healy practitioner, or was it HeartMath?
So I'm a HeartMath coach.
That's it.
But I'm certified, but I've never really practiced as a coach. I like to get the certifications to get deep into the knowledge of things. And if you don't mind me correcting you, I think it was post-pandemic. I think it was.
Was it?
Right in the middle. Yeah, because I didn't have the time, or I didn't have anything to overcome until about that time frame.
Okay.
Yeah,
time has just totally gotten away from us.
It really has. I think it was in the early part of 21.
Tell me a little bit about your story and how you got into biohacking.
Well, I think getting into biohacking, long before I heard the term, in 2012, I was exposed to HeartMath. And it was a TED Talk from Howard Martin. I was running Comic Cons before I started this biohacking expo. And so I had a lot of experience with large events, very large events, like 50,000 attendees over a weekend. And putting those on and putting on multiples a year was then I can't imagine my life being more stressful than it was during that time.
Sandy, with those, though, at least you got to see people in costume.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yes.
A little bit of fun.
It's delightful, for sure. I stressed out so other people could be happy.
Yeah.
That was kind of my life. And I needed a way to reduce my stress. And I discovered HeartMath a long time ago and found I couldn't get my heart into coherence. And my heart rate variability was low, and I struggled. And the harder I tried, the worse it was. And so I went in and out of phases where I was trying to find that kind of peace within myself. And then in late 2020, I was exposed to mold in my environment. And I didn't actually get COVID until much later. But when I started to experience cognitive decline at 45 during the pandemic, a lot of people wanted to just make quick assumptions as to what was wrong with me. Oh, it must have been COVID. Oh, it must be perimenopause. Oh, it must be this, that, or the other. You must just be really stressed. All of those things could have been true. And this is how people kind of end up on this sideways path where they don't find the root cause and they don't heal properly because there are so many great assumptions as to what is going on with us, but we don't really know. And so I purchased the BioWell during that time before I knew that I had been exposed to mold. That's when I saw you at that conference, and I never used it. Like I was not really in a mindset where I could figure out how to do things. And it wasn't until I started to get better and I was like, I've got this really expensive device sitting on my shelf. Maybe I'll go to this event and figure out really how to use it. But I spent 6 months trying to figure out what was wrong with me in this state where I couldn't work anymore. The mold that I had went to my brain first, and then the rest of my body got sick. And so I just kept buying things that could improve cognition or test what was going on with me. It was very challenging to get anywhere. And I just kept getting progressively sicker. And I had not heard of functional medicine until that time. I didn't know anything about this world. And I found Dr. Hyman's videos on YouTube and Dr. Amen. One of my favorite interviews was Lisa Feldman-Barrett with Tom Bilyeu. She introduced me in that video to the concept that depression is a symptom, not a cause. And that turned my whole life around because my life was wonderful. And I loved all of the things that caused me to stress because I was so passionate. And people who live their passions have some of the most stress. And so I was looking for ways to mitigate that. But there was no reason to feel depressed, but I did. And so when I could see it from the perspective of the canary in the coal mine, what is it about this feeling? What is it telling me about my body? And how do I start to get better? So I started to biohack before I knew what it was. And then someone asked me if I'd heard of Dave Asprey. I had not. And then so I listened to 2 of his books. And in one of them, in the first one I listened to, he referred to HeartMath, which I thought was great. And then in the second book, he told his story of mold, or at least the second book that I read. And then I was able to get tested. But in Florida, which they call it the sunshine state, it's not. It's the moist state.
Very moist. It's very moist.
So, the spores are everywhere. It's very difficult. They won't allow you legally to test yourself for mold. So it's a urine test, but you have to find a practitioner. So you guys could help people with this test, but I couldn't get it on my own. There are only 14 states that won't allow individuals to get tested, and Florida is one of them.
Wow.
So it took me a month to get an appointment with somebody who could test, and then several weeks to figure out, yes, I did have dangerous levels of mold in my body. But once I had the answer, then I knew how to detox. And so that's when I started to get better. And I think I met you soon after that, maybe within a couple months. Because once I started to detox, I was on my way. And
you didn't look very sick. You looked normal. I mean, you didn't appear very sick.
Yeah.
You must have been on your path.
Well, I was practicing my HeartMath meditation every day before I went down to the sessions. So
awesome.
That's part of the story for sure.
Well, now with what you do with the BioHacker, that's a mouthful, right? With the BioHacker Expo in Miami, which is actually the first time that I met you, because at last year's expo, Lisa introduced us for the first time and she said, that's the woman who's running the whole thing. And I'm like, that little lady with the red hair, that cute little lady is doing all of this? She said, yeah, she's pretty awesome. And last year, Lisa and I were these, the new kids on the block, call it, right? It was our first, and it was so well attended, biohacking conference as a vendor, and especially just introducing a product to the general public. I have to say, it was such a great experience for Lisa and me, because from the minute that we walked in, setting up our space, it was so well organized, and from the start, from the get-go, all the way through the conference, it was just masterfully done. And I'm sure that there are things that go on behind the scene that nobody else sees. But I just wanted to say bravo to you, because it really is an unbelievable event. I'm so happy that we chose to do it. It was so great experiencing it for our first big conference. So thank you.
Oh, goodness. It just warms my heart to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we reserved our spot for next year, too.
I know. I'm so excited.
I know.
Yeah. It's people describe event running as a duck on water, where it's really smooth from the outside. And then if you could see underneath, the paddling is intense.
Yeah.
And so
that's usually how, most good operators work. Yeah. They show just everything is just smooth along the water. And then it's a great analogy, right? It's the frantic flapping of the feet underneath. So very, very good analogies.
Well, you didn't see when I went out back and cussed somebody out in the parking lot.
No, we didn't see that. But I would have
happened.
We would have liked that, actually. We would have. We have that side to us also. So we got
to keep it real sometimes.
Yeah, we get it totally. So you brought together the most incredible people. And that was one of the things that, I said to Wendy, I'm one of those people that I'm pretty intuitive. So I can walk through a conference in 5 minutes and decide what I like. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's just so many incredible things here. And, when you're doing this and you're out there and you're looking for vendors and you're looking for speakers and you're looking for the, who's coming out into this biohacking world, what are some of the trends that you're observing, or the innovations or the devices, or what is the latest and greatest that you've seen?
The thing that guided me in selecting who would speak and set up was really the principle of what I said before, the canary in the coal mine, this idea that depression is a symptom. So I focused heavily on metabolic health, Christopher Palmer and Benazati at the core of that, and wanted people to understand that there might just be something inside of us that is out of balance, that, these feelings aren't the cause, that maybe the gut biome is the cause. Maybe it's too much sugar. Maybe it's this or that. And people will need to explore that on their own. But I was very passionate with that first event about getting that message out. And I have these recordings online as part of my community on my website. And so that will stay. For me, I won't continue to go down that road. I won't talk about that at every show. But that was my guiding principles. What brought me to this was what I wanted to give back to people, was to let them know that really they don't have to suffer. And that's still at the core of what I'm doing. But in terms of trends in biohacking, where I'm going this year, I'm really fascinated by the fact that I don't personally have any children of my own. But two adults, let's just say they're both 40, they come together, and from the cells in their adult 40-year-old bodies, they make a 0-day-old baby. And so there is code in adult humans that is able to create something that is brand new, age 0. And I came to understand this in this framework from Dr. Ian White, who will be speaking at the next event. And so he's, as a PhD scientist in regenerative medicine, he's focused on trying to find the molecules in amniotic fluid, in the umbilical cords, that are creating this phenomenon. I tend to have a more esoteric view of the world. Not that he doesn't, but he's still very much looking at the fluids and the tissues and the matter, trying to find it. I suspect, at least in my wild imagination, that it's a frequency. We know that DNA carries an electromagnetic signal, and I suspect that that code is part of some sort of morphic resonance, that we carry it as adults. And so if we carry it as adults, think of all of the benefit people are getting from autologous stem cell treatments. It's coming from adult bodies, regenerating tissue within the same body. And that is truly fascinating to me. And so finding ways to use frequency for healing is the thing that I think I'm personally most passionate about.
And us too.
Yeah.
And that's what, you're saying the word code.
Yeah.
And we are code.
We are code.
But that is the one thing that I've learned over the course of this last, say, 2 years, being with Lisa. I used to sit in Lisa's chair as she was doing my hair, and she would talk about quantum technology and frequencies and resonance and really big words. And I listened. But now that I am involved with this, it is the fundamental basis of what we are made of. We are made of these frequencies, and we are made of this energy. And it's the energy that is shared between and amongst cells. And we are also made up of water. And Lisa, what do you think? I mean, I'm going off on the doctor tangent right now. Yeah, I know. I know. The environment. Right.
And we know that water has memory.
Yeah.
And we're made up of water mostly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what are we remembering? And then what is it about getting the signals to the right place in the body? For me, when I look at aging, and there's so many theories about aging, but to me, I see it as a logistics issue. Getting the signals to flow through the body efficiently is the biggest challenge I think we face. And inflammation is the number one blockage of those signals. You know, we can go into any number of things that will block the signals, but the first thing you can do is just go put your feet on the ground. And that will help the logistical signaling within the body.
Yeah, absolutely. I love grounding. You know, it's like, you know, I'm a little esoteric in the way I think as well. And it's like, for me, because I'm so spiritual, it's like your feet are like where the divine meets the earth. Yeah. You know, it's like this energy comes into your crown and it has to flow through to your feet, and you have to be grounded, but you have to stay connected. So it's this torus field, so to speak, of the energy coming up and going in and around, and so many things, these unseen forces really affect us. That's why, of course, with what we do with code, it's pretty incredible because we use saline solution as a carrier to deliver these different subtle energy patterns to restore cellular signaling or cellular communication and essentially restoring balance. So we're fortunate just because we were introduced to a scientist that's been studying this for 40 years, and he's a pioneer. We feel like, and it saved my life during the pandemic. I mean, I was really sicker than I had ever been as well. And I did not want, you know, the vaccine that they were putting out. And I didn't want the traditional medicine that would throw other parts of my body out of balance. So when my father told me about this and how awesome, you know, the research was that they were finding, I'm like, okay, Dad, I'll try it. Send it over. And so I did. And here we are about a year later. You know, I went up and I met the scientist and I said, why doesn't everybody have this? And how can I help you bring it to the world? And now here we are. And every time we go to events or we speak consciously with like-minded people, we learn more ways to say the same thing. And I think that getting the message out that we are energetic beings, we're light beings, we're made of light, you know, having a human experience. And it's really not woo-woo. It's really scientific, actually. And I love going to these events and seeing all the people that are making a difference with the research, proving kind of what I've known for a long time, but I'm just woo-woo, you know?
Right.
Scientific.
So one of the studies I read recently said that frequencies between the range of 30 hertz and 50 hertz can put more stem cells into circulation. And so going back to the trend I'm seeing with regenerative medicine and what I feel about that in terms of frequency, I made my own sound bed this week.
Awesome.
And so I'm using this app called the Sonic app. It's available only on the iPhone, but it will put out any single frequency, any single tone that you want. I happen to really believe that the missing piece in sound beds today, you can find sound beds everywhere, but most of them, you hear the sound through headphones, and then they have transducers that put vibrations through the body that match the sounds so that you don't bother people around you with the sound of the sound bed. But sound travels through matter. Vibration, it can jostle matter, but it doesn't penetrate matter like sound does. And so for me, I want a sound bed that actually makes sound because I want that sound to go through my bone marrow. I made my first prototype this week. It's kind of a mid-range prototype. I've got 2 more to make. I'm just so proud of myself for being able to put something together. Like,
should be. That's
I'm feeling
That's absolutely fascinating. It really is.
My dad has neuropathy. And so I'm trying to improve the signaling. This, to me, it's a logistics issue, right? Something's blocking his nerves from being able to send and receive signals down to his feet. I don't know what out there. His doctors can't help him. They gave him some physical therapy. They can't find the cause of his neuropathy. So they say because of that, they can't treat him. I am hell-bent on trying to find the right frequency that gets him truly walking again the way that he wants to walk.
Hope you do. We do know about something that actually could possibly help with what he's going through. You know, our formulations are all derived from different molecular formulas, like Lisa said, come from 40 years of research. And the foundation of these molecular formulations is something that Dr. John McMichael coined resonant molecular signaling. And so we know that his molecular formulas work on a cellular level. They are sending signals between and amongst the cells. And so we've taken his molecular formulas, we've harnessed the information, we've put it into a digitized code, and then we infuse that information through subtle energy patterns into the carrier, which is the saline solution. But the key to our formulations are that we know in the essence of that formulation, they are already working on a cellular level. And so we're bringing something into the body through one simple drop under the tongue, sublingually. You know, with that being said, you know, one of the questions that I was going to ask you, here you are creating your own sound bed and you're doing your own biohacking. You see hundreds of companies and products. Are there some that just really stand out to you that you could talk about?
I'm a huge fan of hyperbarics. You know, it's helped me heal. I'm just going to bring it right back to frequency. Just speaking of my own experience, the Healy device is something that shocked my doctor. When I finally found a functional medicine doctor that specialized in helping someone detox from mold, between visits, you know, a month apart, he was shocked at how much I had recovered. And by this third visit, which was 2 months from the first one, he wanted me to talk about my symptoms. And I was like, I don't understand. First of all, he told me the path to healing was to not focus on your symptoms. So I didn't, because I took him seriously. And then when I saw him on the third time, he's like, so tell me about your symptoms. And I was like, no, you're not for me. But that's about the time when I met Healy. So and I think I really attribute the Healy to much of that healing, putting microcurrent into the body at the frequency that resonated best for me. And I tried a few and I could feel which one was working. Really matters. I also really love manual lymphatic drainage. I love the Balancer Pro. I can't find anyone. I just moved to Louisville, Kentucky, and I can't find anybody in town who has one. It's a little out of my price range, so I don't have one. I have been avoiding. Oh, no?
No.
Great. It's this like big blue suit that you wear up to almost to your chest, and it pushes the lymph fluid up towards your midsection, and then you do another session with a jacket that pushes it down, and you can feel your tummy gurgle, and that's how you know it's working.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
Huh, that is cool. We'll have to
there are so many devices and modalities out there, and it goes back even to what you said, just grounding, right?
Yeah.
Just the breathing. Grounding.
Oh, breathing is so important, right?
So important. So important.
We hold our breath when we're stressed, and we'll catch ourselves going, wait, when was the last time I took a breath? And it's so silly that we're not supposed to think about breathing, right? That's why it's part of the automatic system, right? But when we do, it can change our lives. And going back to HeartMath, because I think that I mean, we know from the research that they've done that putting your heart and brain into coherence broadens the electromagnetic field, that the torus field surrounding our bodies. When we're in frustration, that torus field is contracted. And when we are coherent, it expands. And so I believe that we are more than our bodies. And I believe that that field is every bit as much a part of me as the parts I can touch. And when I put more intention into holding a broader field, then my field can reach out and touch other people's fields.
Right.
And like little studies they've done, they can put 4 people at a table who know how to get their hearts and brains into coherence with one person who doesn't, measure them all, and they just tell them to wait patiently for the next exercise. The people who can get into coherence know that they are to get into coherence because the experiment is really the one who doesn't know. That person who is just waiting for the exercise, they're measuring their field, their heart getting into coherence because the 4 people surrounding them are literally lifting them up. And that to me is the most profound thing that we can do just in purpose in life, is to keep this open, just sensitive, coherent vibe.
That's why we like to have these conscious conversations, because literally there's a synchronization that's happening within our brains as we're communicating with each other. And whoever's out there listening, it's just at a higher vibration. It takes you out of whatever space that you're in, and it's uplifting and it's educating, and it does have an impact on things like self-awareness, so we love that. But, bringing it back to biohacking, how do you find balance between self-experimentation and being safe, really? I mean, because like you said with your dad, the doctors can't help, so they've done the best that they can. Well, now it seems like it's a self-experimentation situation. And then how do you manage being safe and not pushing it, but pushing it? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, the things that he's doing now are things that are at least FDA condoned. I don't need to call it when it's not approved, but still, like, okay, I see you there. You can do that. Like, he's using a red light boot on his feet, and he's doing an Epsom salt foot bath every night. And so that's got a detoxification effect. And then it's a vibrating foot bath. It generates nitric oxide, the vibration at a minimum. And then the saline helps as a carrier. And so he's doing that every night, and he follows it with a red light treatment on both feet. He's very frugal, so he only does 1 foot at a time. He could buy 2 of these, but no. I'll do 20 minutes, 10 minutes off. When you talk about self-experimentation, I mean, is taking code, is that part of self-experimentation? This is not an FDA-approved substance, right? But there's so much in the world of supplementation and devices that are legal to be bought and sold that are harmless, right?
Yeah. That's the bottom line.
I think most of it is harmless. When you get to the stuff that's truly questionable, that flows with what people think of as self-experimentation, you're talking about gene splicing, and Brian Johnson is doing shockwaves on his junk, right? I mean, like, this is the kind of stuff that we think of when we think of self-experimentation. I mean, these are out of the realm of your ordinary stuff, but there's so much we can do with oxygen therapy, frequency healing, even a sound bath. I mean, I play gongs as a hobby. Me too. Oh, yeah, it's wonderful. Yeah. It's so healing to feel those vibrations. And so that's part of why I built the sound chairs. I want to pump in, like, I'm liking 33 hertz through the chair in conjunction with a gong bath and playing sound bowls. And they pair very well together. So you've got this continuous feeling of the sound with the overtones and the journeying, the sound ceremony.
I love it. Sound is a scalar wave, and it's just, that's what has the ability to heal us. And I was talking to a research scientist he's another pioneer, Dr. Bill Bengston, and I picked his brain a little bit. And he thinks that it's actually a very low frequency that is able to heal cancer spontaneous. And it's just something that he's been studying for years and years and years. And there's still a lot that's unknown because sometimes we don't have the technology to measure everything in such a way, but yet there's results. And how do you explain it? It's like, who cares? It's just healing.
Right.
Well,
Well, I think especially when you get to sound, it's hard to run studies on the low frequencies in a way that could be replicated in a doctor's office. Yeah. It's hard to study in that range. It's hard to focus it. It's hard to, but the high wave ultrasound technology has pinpoint precision.
Right.
And so what's being developed is for commerce. I think that one of the areas of pushback for biohacking is really about liability protection for doctors.
Yeah.
I went to the first neuropathy appointment with my dad that he had, and they happened to put him with a Parkinson's doctor, and he didn't have Parkinson's. He has essential tremor and this neuropathy that they can't explore. And the doctor said, look, I can get you scheduled for the right appointments, but you won't come back and see me, and I can't speak to what's going on with you because I treat for Parkinson's, but my colleague down the hall deals with essential tremor and other neuropathies. And so you'll go back and you'll talk to them, and I can't speak to your condition at all, even though he's a neuroscientist and a doctor and works in the same office. He himself didn't feel free to have the conversation of something he definitely knew about. And so we've got all of these restrictions placed on our medical community. And you may know a little bit about that. I spoke to my dentist down the street and I asked him about holistic dentistry, not my dentist, but my neighbor who's a dentist. And he said, well, the FDA. And I said, well, I don't trust the FDA. And he's like, sure, but the FDA. And I was like, right, I get it. You cannot legally tell me something that isn't compliant with what the FDA says. And so between the FDA and the insurance, our entire system of healthcare is about reducing liability. And so I don't fault the doctors anymore. I used to get really mad. You could have a totally fit, super healthy, excellent lifestyle doctor who won't recommend how he or she is living their lives.
Isn't that incredible? It's mind-boggling. It really is. I know.
So imagine they're sitting in front of someone who is obese and they say, I can give you these drugs, but what you should really do is follow this diet and move in this way. And they could be sued for malpractice because the likelihood that that person has the wherewithal to follow through on all of that is been demonstrated over time to be low. And so then if they deteriorate, the doctor can be held liable, and it all goes back to the liability. So they have to treat it as if it's an immediate threat to that person's life. And that's how we treat everything in the medical community, with a very specific, accepted, dogmatic answer so that they don't get sued. And frankly, especially the way we are treating children today, I think it's child abuse. And it scares me.
I had to go to a place nobody wants to go. I had to go to visit a cancer center. And I turned around and there was this snack bar of snacks, of things that they give out to people that just need a little something. It was the worst food, like cookies and packaged crap with sugar. And I'm like, wait, doesn't cancer thrive on sugar? Like, I was like literally speechless. I'm like, how in a healthcare situation with these people so sick could you even offer them that?
Right.
It made zero sense to me. I was disgusted, to say the least. I really didn't even feel good about being there to begin with. So that whole thing just didn't feel good. But it's the same thing that parents are giving their kids for the sake of, this is easy and this is what they want. It's not always what's best.
Well, I hope that more people start to open their eyes to these other alternatives. And, before we know it, it's going to be February and it's going to be time for your next event. And if someone wants to learn more about the BioHacker Expo in Miami, how could they do that?
Well, they can go to my website, biohackerexpo.com. I think if you Google it, it'll just come up, BioHacker Expo. There's lots of biohacking events. There's a summit and a conference and a world and all kinds of things. And if you're into all of it, go to all of it. This is a warm, open community, I think, all the way around. But mine's the expo. And we're going to focus on empowering people who are in a situation where they're trying to lift up like 2 to 50 people in their lives. Once we've overcome something, as I think all of us have, we then start to talk to the people that are important to us about how we came to feel better. For me, it was my husband at the time and my mom. My mom started to listen and feel better. My ex-husband didn't. And it's hard to watch people suffer. And the biggest mistake I made in the first year was thinking I could reach people who were in pain. People in pain don't want to leave their houses. And now I'm really sensitive to that. And I'm interested in reaching the people who maybe had that taste of feeling better and they want more of that. And they want to feel more confident in sharing how that happens. Because in this world, when we talk about this, half of the people who listen think we're quacks. And that's okay. That's really okay. And so we're here to say, and Rick Rubin said, if 50% of people don't think you're crazy, you aren't trying hard enough. And I'm passionate about helping people feel more confident about speaking about how they came to feel better, because we need more people to speak up.
And we're incredibly grateful for the community of like-minded people that you always bring together. It's just, you would think that these conferences as a vendor would make us tired. But really, for me, they give me energy, because you walk in and it's like you can feel the vibes are high. And it's just incredible to have these high vibe conversations at events like this. So I hope anyone listening will come and join us at the BioHacker Expo. We will all be there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being on our show.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure getting to know you better also, and look forward to many more conversations with you.
Thanks for listening to the C3 podcast. Find past episodes and subscribe on our website, codehealthshop.com, or Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and YouTube.
The Code Girls appreciate discussing conscious living with inspiring guests who make a difference.
Remember, conscious living starts with conscious conversations. Until next time, be intentional, stay inspired, practice gratitude, be well, and feel the drop.